we're live.
Hello, how's it going?
Just wait for people to join us.
Excellent.
I'm going to open the chat. Welcome, everyone. It always takes a little bit of time for us to start to see people start commenting, but let us know where you're joining us from, your location, and also your handle. So let us know where we can follow you. And Rose, straight up, I'm happy to answer a question. This is being recorded, so we'll send the replay after this. Hi, Delma. Hannah from Plann, thanks for joining us. I'm sure you're going to be busy in the chat. Antoinette is with us, also from our team. Thanks, Antoinette. Hi, Desiree. Maui. Oh, wouldn't you love to be in Maui right now, Dani?
Oh, if only. Confined to my bedroom for the time being. So.
Dani and I are joining you from lockdown in Sydney. So
yes,
Maui sounds really nice right now.
Yeah.
Ashna from India.
Oh, all over the place.
Oh, we've got Alice from Bondi. Hi, Alice. I hope that you're coping okay.
Oh, we've got a few in the States.
Jewelry business. So I'm Karina, and you might have seen me at the last Plann with Plann. I'm the head of marketing at Plann, and I'm lucky to join you for 2 consecutive sessions. I'm not sure if you've seen on our social media, but Greta is not working as closely with us anymore, although we still love her and she loves us. And her sister Jen is actually joining the team, and you'll see her on socials as well. So I'll be hosting Plann with Plann moving forward. And we've also got Dani here, who is our creative lead at Plann. So she is responsible for basically the beautiful aesthetic that you see. So I'm excited to dive into that. We'll just wait a couple more minutes, I think, from Florida.
Yeah.
Another one from Maui. Gosh.
Oh, okay. I'm curious.
I've been to Hana on the Big Island, but I know that there's Hana in Maui because I accidentally booked flights there instead of the Big Island one time. It was a whole debacle. There's 2 Hanas. Oh, no. Philippines. Perfect. All right. Well, we might dive right in. And if you're watching this as the replay, hello as well. So, Dani, you're going to join us back here in a little bit. I'm just going to run through some things first. So I'll see you back shortly.
Excellent.
Just going to share my screen and we'll get started, and we'll come back obviously for questions at the end. Whoops. All right. So welcome to this Plann with Plann. So how to create the perfect grid. So I'm joined obviously by Dani from Plann, the creative lead, and she'll be joining us back shortly to take us through how exactly to get that nice aesthetic that you see on all your favorite accounts. So first up, obviously welcome. So the official welcome. So I'm the marketing lead at Plann. I've got over 10 years experience in digital marketing. So I'm happy to kind of share some of that expertise today, but most importantly, I'm going to be joined by Dani, who is the lead designer at Plann, and she's actually Plann's longest standing employee. So she's been with Plann basically from the beginning of Plann. So she truly is responsible for the look that you see. And she has a bachelor in graphic design, and she has a real knack for visual hierarchy. And a keen interest in like user experience and strategy, which Dani will actually touch on in her presentation, in that it's so much more than just pretty graphics, but there's strategy that goes behind every beautiful grid. And in her spare time, Dani not only loves to create jewelry, but she's a huge roller skater. I'm not sure if she's going to share her Instagram skating account, but it couldn't be too hard to find. We do feature it a little bit on Plann blog. So that is, yeah, Dani in a nutshell. So you're in for a treat with her when she joins us. But first, I just wanted to make sure that you had everything you needed to make sure that you're getting the most out of this session. So if you haven't already, I would advise you obviously to sign up to Plann. You can do this at the register link. Hopefully someone might drop that in the chat for me. So you can sign up for a free 7-day trial. And at that link there, a Canva account, because we will be diving into the August content calendar, which is our monthly content calendar that we put out for all of our users with content ideas. So we'll go through that. And we have customizable Canva templates. So that's why a Canva account is pretty important. You can connect your Plann and Canva account as part of the free plan. So it's really easy to use. And of course, the content calendar. So that file should be in your inbox if you're signed up to our email list. But also, I think Emma on our control panel is going to be sharing that file with you now as well. So I'm going to dive right into the August content calendar because you truly are in for a treat with that. So I'm just going to have to share that tab if you just bear with me. Second. Unfortunately, I was having issues with sharing earlier. All right, here we go. All right, so this is your August content calendar, which is at the file. So every month we put this together, or I can't really take credit for it. Our content editor, Emma, who is also on this webinar, puts together content ideas for every day of the month. And then Dani, who obviously you'll hear from shortly, is the mastermind behind creating this beautiful calendar and also the Canva templates that match with every content prompt. So if you haven't used the content calendar before, basically you can come download the PDF and come in and literally click through and find a template that suits you. So this one is obviously for the first day of the month, which goes with the content prompt. In addition to the customizable Canva templates, Emma has also put together captions for each of these content ideas. So you can literally copy and paste the caption. And we did receive feedback from the last couple of months that it hasn't been the easiest to copy and paste. So Emma has actually kindly popped them into a Google Doc. So all you have to do is open up the Google Doc and you will see all of the captions that you need. So you can copy and paste them right here. So rather than requesting edit access, this is just a housekeeping thing. If you just copy the file and you can resave it, and then you can make any edits to the captions so that they suit your business. And yeah, any changes. Obviously, you know, we try and capture all industries. So there's some things that are relevant, but it's a nice starting point for you to really get started, because we do know that that is a huge content block for a lot of people when they're pushing out social content. Like, what do I actually pair this post with? In addition to that, you might have seen a bit of a sneak peek here, but we have added hashtag sets for this month. So they are beautiful hashtags for each of the days, and you can again easily copy and paste them and save them into Plann in your hashtag sets, which I'll show you just a bit of an overview in a second about that. So obviously hashtags are used to increase the visibility of your posts. So yeah, now you're getting in this calendar the caption, the content prompt, the customizable Canva template, and the hashtag set. So each month we just try and supersize it to make it, so this is, you know, an example of what, you know, the finished thing could look like. Obviously you might want to customize it in Canva with your own brand colors. But yeah, this is basically just our little thank you to you for being part of the Plann community. So we work hard on these every month, and we really do hope that you enjoy them. And of course, if you do use them, it's amazing if you tag us and share us, because we'd love to know like how many people actually use these to assist with their content creation. Again, all designed by Dani, so beautiful professional looking images as well. So before Dani and I come back to present, I'm just going to share one more thing, which is a new feature. So if we jump in Plann, we're obviously always releasing new things. So I'm in Plann right now. So this is what the desktop account looks like if you don't have one already. And if you're ever wondering kind of what is new in the product and you haven't logged in for a while, you can actually just go up here to this tiny little bell here and it will share exactly what's new. So what I wanted to talk to you about was sharing your Instagram posts directly to Facebook. So previously, obviously, we had auto posting for Facebook. We've had that for quite some time now, but we've made it even easier to share your Instagram account directly over to Facebook. So I'll just quickly show you how to do that here. So I'm going to come into our free content and grab an image, August, obviously. Let's pick like a nice start of the month one, add. And the media is just adding now. Of course. All right, so we can add our caption. New month, woohoo, new goals. Hopefully. And here you can copy and paste your hashtags into the first comment and they will auto post for you. They aren't sent to Facebook if you do enable sharing to Facebook automatically as well, just because Facebook, we don't really recommend hashtags anyway. But again, you can jump back over to your August content calendar and grab your hashtags from there. So once you decide that you want to post now, you'll be able to access this toggle button and simply toggle it. So whether you're posting now, scheduling for a later time, or you might want to check, your best times to post from your analytics, that post is sent directly to Facebook as well. So obviously it's a huge time saver now having that right there. And because I did promise you with hashtags as well, I did want to just quickly show you in case you're not aware. If you wanted to come and copy your hashtags from the August calendar and save them into your Plann account, won't save that for now. You can hop over to the hashtags and literally, so we might say August or maybe new month, and we want to use like a certain set of hashtags for the new month post every month. Actually, this is me practicing earlier, so you can see I've actually saved down the hashtags that we gave you for August 1, and you might want to edit them slightly for next month. So you could edit that to September intentions. So in your free account, you actually are able to save 3 hashtag sets. But if you are a Plann Plus member, which is one of our paid memberships, you have unlimited hashtag sets. So more and more, I think that the Instagram algorithm is looking at really tight hashtag sets. So hashtags that are directly related to the content that you're producing. So obviously with this one, it's the first of the month, it's a new month. And so the hashtags are all around that. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And I think it's time to welcome back Dani. And don't forget, there will be time for questions at the end. So Dani, are you ready to launch in to tell us how to get that perfect grid?
I absolutely am. Thank you for that introduction. It's very, very exciting to be jumping up from behind the scenes and joining you guys on Plann this month. Why don't I share my screen and I'll jump straight into what we're talking about today. So, give us one moment. Alrighty. Awesome. So I'm going to run you guys through essentially how to curate the perfect grid and how you're going to go about designing your Instagram feed. And I think to start off with, a lot of people are probably asking, like, we're in 2021, why is our Instagram feed still such a hot piece of property? Why is it such an important piece when there are so many different formats available for our socials now? And I think it's really important to remember that your Instagram feed, because it's such a widely accessible platform, is the first thing that a lot of your audience are going to see. And it's the place that they make that split-second decision on whether you're a brand that they're interested in, whether you are offering content that they want to follow along and engage with. So it is definitely a really, really important piece of real estate. And you should definitely be putting some focus into how you're presenting your brand online there. So first things first, I think we're going to talk about creating a theme when you're putting together your Instagram account. That could be the mood or the visual personality that you're portraying to your audience online. And that you can pull that together through different patterning, through different layout options, through colors. It's basically what you're using to establish your identity online. And you're going to use it in an almost repetitive way to create this familiarity. When people see certain types of content attached to certain colors in a certain way, they're going to think of your brand. So going off of that, we're going to talk about some layout, some different themes that you may have already seen while you use Instagram. Now, there are so many different options. I'm going to pull apart these three and talk about what they're using to create this theme. So on the left, we can see we've got this color pop option. And as the name suggests, the way they're pulling this together is by using this bright pops of color through all of their different graphics. But if you actually have a look at the individual tiles, they're all very different photos. We've got some studio setups, we've got some flat lays, we've got some scenic shots. While the type of content in it is all very, very different, it all ties in and looks like one collective piece because they're using these really vibrant colors through all of it. And then we jump into the dark theme in the middle, where again, we can immediately see that color is a common theme in it. But if you take a closer look and check out what each of the images are about, most of them are flat lays. So there's another common factor that they're using. They're featuring the same photo style across the grid. And then when we jump into this third minimal style, you see a lot of geometry, you're seeing lots of straight lines, lots of flat colors, and the content type is all the same. It's all architecture. And that's the common thing that's pulling it all together. While you've got some washed out white walls, you've got the blue sky coming through, and then you've got shadows, it all feels like one collective piece because they're all using this architecture, shape, geometry throughout it. So I'm gonna talk about layout options as well a little bit. And these are, you don't have to go a layout. It might be something that you want to use in your brand, get some patterning into your grid to give it a little bit more depth. So you'll definitely have seen these over the years. These come in and out of trend pretty frequently. The split collage on the left, beautiful snapshot. When you look at it, you're like, wow, so much thought has gone into this. But something to keep in mind when you are choosing something with a pattern through it is how your customers are going to engage with the posts on their own. If you aren't uploading content for a couple of weeks at a time, and then one day you're uploading 9 different images so that your grid looks like this, all your audience are receiving are 9 random images scattered throughout their Instagram feed. There's no context. It loses a lot of its meaning, and you're not going to get the engagement that you might be looking for with it. So just keep that in mind when you're selecting the layout type, whether you're happy with people just skimming through your content when they're going through their feed, or whether you're just there as a portfolio. People are just going to see you when they jump onto your specific account and see the overall layout. There are other styles that you can see here, like the checkerboard one and the borders style. And I'm going to say really quickly, if these are layouts that you use and they're working for you, continue to use them. Don't feel like I'm saying don't use them. I'm just saying when you're choosing if you're going to use them or not, think about whether it's a trend that's going to last, if it's going to be timeless, or if it's something that might look a little bit dated in a year's time. So yeah, you'll have seen over the last few years this checkerboard style where people match up quotes to images, and it might be one on, one off, might be in a horizontal or a vertical style. Absolutely, I think, consider who your audience are, what sort of content you're wanting to send out into the world, and what you want your audience to expect from you. And then you get things like these borders. And if patterning is something that you really want to do within your content, keep in mind that you need to be really consistent with it. So if you're going to add a border to one image, you're going to have to add a border to every single one. And here you can see they've gone portrait, landscape to make this consistent pattern. Again, industry dependent. If you're a photographer or somebody that works in commercial work, you might shoot a lot of content in 16:9 format. So understandably, you're going to have borders around each and every single one of your images to suit that 16:9 format. When people land on your Instagram grid, they're going to know straight away, okay, something in film. That's what it is. It looks very cinematic. It's very movie, commercial kind of style. So just consider the audience that you're catering to as well. And then in what I've just said, you need to consider what it is you want to post about. So quite often you hear, don't go about posting the same thing day in and day out because the people that follow you are going to tire. They don't want to see the same content over and over and over again. But if you actually take a step back and look at a lot of the Instagrammers that you follow today, you'll probably find that they talk about the same topics pretty frequently. And it's normally something that they're really passionate about. And that's why you've chosen to follow them. You know what to expect from them, and there's a level of consistency there. So think about topics maybe within your industry that you're engaged with on your own social media, or topics that you don't think get spoken about enough and you'd love to see more of. And maybe pick a handful that are relevant to you and your business and then use them on rotation so that you yourself or your brand don't feel like you're just saying the same thing over and over, because your audience aren't stupid. It's not like they're not going to pick up on what you're saying. You want to be able to rotate between different content types and expose them and educate them as well, depending on what it is that you want them to receive from you. So yeah, use them in rotation, create a bit of consistency. They're going to come to expect certain topic types from you. When they jump between Instagram and then Facebook and they see, oh, this particular content type with these colors, I know this brand. This is how you're creating that level of recognition. And then I'm going to sort of break down an example of this and how one industry type might portray themselves very differently or approach their social media in a different way. So we're going to talk about swimwear today. Patagonia on the left-hand side. Immediately you look at their grid and you're not seeing just women in swimwear. You're seeing a lot of landscapes. You're seeing tiles that, if you open it up, it's probably going to be an educational piece. They're trying to provoke thought around an issue at hand. And for them, it's all about sustainable fashion and slow fashion. So they're really here to be thought leaders. They want to educate their audience. They want people to get involved. They want to start a conversation. Whereas taking it from a different angle, we've got Vitamin A Swimwear in the middle, who are also an ethical swimwear brand. They focus on recycled plastics in their swimwear. But immediately, looking at their grids, you're seeing a lot of product. So their main focus is brand awareness. They want you to know that, hey, we exist, we have a story behind us, and when you're next in the market to purchase, we're going to be front of mind. We want to be front of mind for you. So there's a lot of, we want to be a trendsetter, that kind of thing. But then they've also got these tiles, like the super trashy one right in the middle, where you open it up, it's a carousel that kind of breaks down some information about plastics in the ocean. So they're still trying to edge in on that thought leadership end of the thing. They want to keep the conversation going. They're not just going, hey, we exist and we recycle plastics, end of story, buy from us. They're going, we exist. We want to make you aware that this is an ongoing conversation. We want to educate you. We want to get you involved so that we're front of mind because you believe in what it is that we're trying to say and do. And then we've got somebody like Greta Rose, who we all know, if we've been in any of the previous Plann sessions. Jump onto her feed. It's definitely more from the influencer angle, where you get Greta in these beautiful tropical locations showing off different brands of swimwear. And the messaging behind it is very different again. For her, it's take a step back, take a breath, just relax, look after yourself. It's not necessarily about selling a product. It's her own personal brand. So while each of these industries all touch on the same thing, they've all taken very different approaches. And when you look at the grids, you can see how differently that affects what sort of content you're uploading. So with that all being said, how do I find balance? How do I stay true to what my brand is and engage with my audience and still come across in a professional way? Now, if you haven't used Plann before, this is a great chance to jump in, have a look. We do offer a strategy tool, and in both our desktop and mobile app, you can jump in. We have over 100 different industry prompts with 9 to 15 different prompts to kind of kickstart some ideas on content that you could be posting about to your audience. They're just a place to start from, and you can always shift them around to suit whatever works for you, whatever content your audience are engaging with. I'll give you a little example of this on the next slide. So here we go. Now, on the left-hand side, we've got 9 tiles for our e-commerce swimwear strategy. On the right, you can see how I've overlaid images onto those tiles to create a rather consistent looking grid. I've tried to find images that all follow a similar color theme. And once they're there, I know that I've hit all of my topic points that I want to cover, information that I want to be discussing with my audience, and I can just drag and drop and rearrange it until I'm happy with how it looks visually. Yeah. Give us one moment. Cool. Before I move on from this general grid view, I'm going to really quickly touch on video in your grid. So if you have seen recently, you may or may not have, Instagram is really pushing towards featuring video content on their platform. That's not to say they're going to take away photo sharing or anything like that. It is just something that they're favoring for the time being. So when you're uploading Reels, IGTV, Lives, Instagram stories, anything like that, they're really favoring that at the moment. So great if you're already utilizing these tools. If you're not, something to consider. It's up to you, absolutely, depending on your audience. But if you've established this grid and this aesthetic for your brand, you may or may not have known you can actually select a thumbnail to be present on your grid so that you're not mismatching or breaking up the theme that you've now established on your Instagram grid. You can see in that video that was playing just before, we've got a couple of covers so that it feels uniform. It feels like it's intentional rather than just taking a snapshot from somewhere in the video. So that is something that you can do in your upload process. You toggle down the bottom when you're uploading your videos, and you can actually add in something, and it just looks a little bit more intentional, a little bit more purposeful. Here are those slides. I'm just giving you a better view of them. So these are from this month's templates in the August calendar. Nice and simple. I've gone with using a common phone sort of shape in all of them. So when you look at it, you know, okay, there's probably a video attached to this. And that's a really good way to just join everything together. All right. I'm going to jump into some editing tools and how you can go about collecting all of your content. Now, again, Plann offers a full editing suite. We have your filters, we've got frames, we've got stickers and overlays. So if you're not somebody that has access to Lightroom or any other like professional editing tools, we do offer a full suite that you can jump in and play around to try establish this consistency within all of your content. Really great tool is the filters tool. If you have figured out that yep, I'm doing swimwear and I want a particular summery vibe, you might jump in and go have a look at some of the aqua, teal, really vibrant filters, and then use that consistently with all of your content. But taking a little step back from that as a starting point when you're choosing your colors for your feed, think about your existing brand and how you might use those on your social media. So you might grab a logo and use that on every image. And that way it's very blatantly clear, cool, this is me. Or you might pick one of your brand colors and use it as a background for everything that you upload, which absolutely you can do. You might find it a little bit repetitive. It's up to you. You might have 3 or 4 different brand colors that you can switch between that you're using consistently through your feed. Alternatively, if you're one of the swimwear brands we were looking at before and your logo and your brand colors are black and white, or green and white, not necessarily something that you associate immediately with swimwear, you might think about more the mood that you're trying to portray to your audience. So in this case, I want to be that relaxed summertime getaway tropical sort of vibe. That's when I'm going to go and choose the blues. I might have a black and white logo, and that's my brand color, but nobody thinks black and white images when they're looking for swimwear. They don't think everything's going to have a white background or everything's going to be black and white swimwear. So just consider who your audience is and the kind of personality you're trying to give your content. So yeah. Let's jump into here. On that note around colors, I'm going to touch on some color theory quickly. Now, when you pick your colors, it's really important to consider what colors do and don't work together. There are a couple of different color schemes that you can go through to avoid creating something that's really flat that people aren't gonna be drawn to. If they're skimming through their Instagram feed and you've got something that's just one single flat color and there's no depth, you've taken all the contrast out of it, people are probably going to keep skimming. There's nothing to draw in the eye. There's nothing to capture your attention there. So a few different options. Not to say that a monochromatic way doesn't work. That could absolutely be the way for you. If you're all about brand awareness and you just want to be present, maybe you just want to make it look pretty, and having that one single color works perfectly for you. And that's what people come to expect from you. But you can also go the route where you've got a couple of different shades working together. This month's content calendar templates, for example, I've used all these autumny warm colors. There's nothing on the opposite end to necessarily break it up. I'm just working with some really deep orangey colors and some washed out yellowy colors and paired them together. And then we can jump into things which I'd probably most commonly recommend is having a complementary or a split complementary color system where you're grabbing colors from the opposite end of this color wheel. And that's really going to capture and create a little bit of depth in your content. And I'll give you a couple of examples of how that's been used previously, just here. So if you have received any of your previous content calendars, you're probably familiar with some of these templates. And you can see how I've gone and attached colors on opposite ends of the scale to create a bit of depth through here. So in this first one, we've got red and orange and blue, and pretty much the same color theme as that tropical getaway one that I was talking about before. But you can see how using a completely different hue gives the messaging here a very different meaning. Having that dark blue is a bit more informative, and I want to educate. It's not so much this tropical getaway lifestyle sort of feeling. And then we've got in this second aqua yellow and purple one, we're using a split complementary system where we've got our orange and pink versus the purples and greeny blues. Really, really vibrant. There's a lot of contrast in here, and it's busy but intentional. Then jumping into the third area, we've got all these washed out flat colors contrasted with the darker blues, and it creates a bit of drama within the feed. It's almost like you're working with shadows to create a bit of depth and contrast. And then with the one on the right, very similar color scheme, in fact, to the second one we were looking at, where it's those purples versus the aqua. But using such a different hue gives it a very different feel again. And I've also introduced some patterning without having to create a checkerboard grid or split up the collage, split collage style photos. I've got some patterning going through by having this reoccurring leafy element. Yeah, a couple of different ways to sort of break it up, but you can see how different shades of a color can also change the meaning behind the content that you're uploading as well. Alrighty. Now, gone and established, okay, these are the colors that my audience are responding to. This is the type of mood that I'm trying to portray, the type of messaging I want to get across. How do I then shift this across to other platforms like Facebook, like LinkedIn, wherever it is that you're sharing your content? The great thing, as I said a little bit earlier, about Instagram is it is so widely accessible, and it's a great place to start your visual planning. It's like a visual planning board, basically, where you can test out these different colors and different elements and see what works for you and what doesn't, and from there expand. Now, one moment, guys. Let me just have a really look at my notes here. Okay, so when you are ready to shift across, it's really important to consider the different personality types that you're going to find on each of these platforms. If you're jumping from Instagram, where think about it as I'm the younger sibling, I am really trendy, I'm very conversational, I'm really aesthetic led. I use phrases like yes, like it's a really young audience, okay? Think about when you're ready to move to Facebook. The audience you find there are probably going to be the slightly older sibling. They're a little bit more serious, and they consider function over form. It's not so much about attaching all these beautiful images to everything. It's what is the information I'm trying to find? I want to find it. I want to get straight to that point. And then LinkedIn, again, you take your step up from that. They're the fact seeker. They want to know, they want to get straight to the point. They want to be educated. So keeping in mind your different audience types across these different areas. Ooh, before we jump into questions, going on from that, when you are ready to jump across platforms and you're like, okay, cool, I've established what my brand is, what content I want, you might not have all the time in the world to go out and spend a day shooting content. And you might not have access to brilliant cameras and studio lights and all the rest. So really good to know. If you do have a Plann account, you may or may not already know that it exists, but we do offer a free stock library. If you're jumping in, uploading your content, we've got this free content section where you can jump in, search for hundreds of thousands of different photos and videos that could be suitable to your industry so that you've got something nice and sharp to present to your audience. So in this case, let's maybe search up some videos. I'll stay on theme with today with swimwear. And you can go in and, like you typically would, create either a single image or video post, or you can select up to 10 pieces of content and create a carousel post. I'm going to go in and create a couple here. Let's go with these 3. I'll just add them quickly. Now you'll notice with a lot of the photos you find on here, that color pairing that we were talking about before, most photographers will already be doing that. They'll be looking for things that contrast and catch your eye. So here we can see, didn't have to look very far. I've got this beautiful blue and skin tone feed going over here. And these images, because they're tropical based, work on the same color theme. So we've got this teal background with these skin colors. And then to add a little bit of pop, we've got the bright red of the watermelon, which we can see in the swimwear, and we've got the blue to contrast it. So you'll find a lot of those points are covered when you're going through these free stock libraries as well. And then just to quickly show anybody that doesn't know about the drag and drop option, I might upload all of this content like, cool, I selected my swimwear strategy, I filled all the tiles in, but I'm looking at this 9 lot and I don't necessarily like the look that it's got right now. I think there's too much skin tone going up here, so I can shuffle things around until I'm happy with that grid. But because I've added them to a strategy tile, I know I'm hitting all of those content topics. So I know if there's specific information I want to be sharing with my audience, they're going to receive it at some point or another within that 9 tile posting time. Yeah, I think that covers everything for now. What I might do is hand it back over to Karina, and we might jump into some questions.
I'm back. Thanks, Dani. That was so good, so informative. I think everyone is probably going to be rushing off to go and improve the aesthetic of their grid now. And actually, that's my first question. And I have seen this question a little bit in terms of if you didn't know that you could set thumbnails, a thumbnail image for your reels or your videos, and you now decide you want to do that, do you just start, or do you have to go back and clean up currently what you were doing? Like, just for example, I've decided now I'm inspired and I want to change my grid aesthetic. What's the best way to implement that?
Okay, well, I think a good way to break that down is think about whether you're changing a theme completely or a layout completely. If you're going from these beautiful tropical blue colors and you're like, you know what, I want to do autumny orange sort of colors, you'll know, as we just spoke about, contrasting color, you get those fleshy tones. So maybe pick a common color that you'd see between the two and use that as a bridging image, where you can see something new is coming, but it's still on brand. This is a common color that I've been using, so I'm not just going from black to white. I've got something to pull it together still as a bridging sort of piece of content.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's just more of an ongoing, like, and this is I guess if you think back to checker board pattern, which you mentioned, which was, you know, a trend maybe a few years ago. And as you said, if you're still using it and it's working, then continue it. Absolutely. But if you scroll back through your feed, you will see, I guess, the iterations of you as a brand and your aesthetic comes along in the same way that we iterate anything, right? And that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. There's no harm in leaving previous styles or trends that you've used up there. If it's still relevant to your audience and you know it's content that people are still going to come to you to look at, I wouldn't say go and archive it. But if you are starting to, there might be certain pieces that you're like, maybe this isn't as applicable, doesn't do as much for me as it needs to, then yeah, definitely look at archiving some stuff. But I wouldn't say delete it all and then start afresh. You can definitely bridge from one to the next.
And I love the concept of you like saying using your grid as almost like a live mood board and seeing, I guess, you know, testing right then and there engagement and what colors and aesthetic people are responding to. Do you recommend then like a different set of brand colors, for example, for socials, differing from your website? Or if you find that, you know, a color people are responding well to on socials, should you roll that out to your other digital assets like your website? Or
well, I think once you've established a brand or a business, you're always going to be testing. So it's never going to be this is it. It works here. It has to work everywhere else. But I think having I think colors are a really, really good way to connect them. Having one common color that you pull in some way across the different platforms so that it looks like a family of platforms is a really good idea. So your website might be really, really sleek and just use a lot of black and white, and you've got all this swimwear content. You want to bring maybe a couple of pops of that aqua color in somewhere just so that you've got a little bit of brand recognition. If you've established your brand somewhere and they haven't been to your website before, or if they're following a link from your Instagram bio and they land on your website and it's a completely different look and feel and it doesn't give you that tropical moodiness that you've created, you're probably going to fall flat a little bit. People aren't going to be sure whether they've come to the right spot or not. So just picking an element that you use somewhere else that you know everybody's going to recognize, pull that across into your other platforms.
Cool. So you want to make sure that it's still instantly recognizable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We had a question earlier about a theatre troupe who has a lot of photographers' content to put on their grid, but then each individual photographer has specifications as to like how they want their images presented. So choosing like a filter to wash over all images for consistency and pulling that aesthetic together isn't really an option for them. So
okay.
What are other ways that like you can, I guess, pull different types of images together so it looks consistent?
Well, one way to combat something like that is if you're setting out, say, 9 blocks of content to one particular photographer where you can see a consistent theme in their work. And then you're sectioning out your grid to look consistent in different places, and that repetitiveness will be consistent for you as well. Or a particular topic, it might be scenic photography, and you've got 10 different photographers that all have images with similar colors, similar kind of mood, and you use 9 of their tiles, and then you shift into another sort of area of like animal photography, or if it's studio photography, but create a repetitive pattern within that. So you don't have to have everything filtered the same way to look consistent. There are other ways to find consistency there.
Perfect. And like you did show us like where to find, you know, stock images for free in Plann, in the image libraries and videos. How do you recommend incorporating stock videos and images with like real faces and real images? Is that something that, you know, you choose one filter and that is helpful because you can put a wash over everything, or how do you intermix? I think right now, obviously, there's a push for us being super raw and authentic on socials, which includes the grid. And then how does that sit alongside really polished images?
I think when it comes to posting and choosing your content, for the most part, if you can find as high quality of an image as you can and try get into the habit of using continually high quality stuff, it's obviously going to create that consistent feeling. You don't want to be taking little front camera phone photos often, if at all. You really, really want to try focus. If you don't have access to cameras on your day-to-day, best option would be using the back camera on your phone for something that's going to be a little bit sharper, setting yourself up in natural light. So you're getting as close to that professional sort of feeling in your photos. And then another thing with editing your images so that they don't feel overdone is keep your editing really, really simple. Not everything has to have a really, really bright, vibrant wash over it. If you do add a filter, you could have that filter all the way down the scale at like 10%, just to give it a little bit of an edge. It doesn't need to be overdone. Not everything has to be at 100%. So when you are mixing and matching professional content and then your own content, you could add that, okay, both these images, sure, mine's not quite the same. I'm adding this little tint of color here, or I'm upping the contrast just to match what I'm seeing in these professional photos, so that it looks somewhat uniform.
Yeah, cool. And actually, no, that was a great answer. And also just on like the specifics of editing, when you showed us like the different theme grids, there was some interest definitely in the white frames. And so Delma actually had a question as to how she go about, like, are there frames in Plann? Like, how does she go about recreating the look?
Yes, yeah. So Plann has a whole range of different frames, black and white frames. We've got some like film stock style things in there that you can jump through and have a look and play with. And you can always change the sizes of these frames and get really creative with it, get really playful. Not all of your content just has to be a pretty scene or a pretty person. Like you can make it as creative as you want it to be. Plann has a whole bunch of stickers that you can overlay onto it as well and mix and just make something a little bit more exciting. So when people are scrolling through, they're actually going to stop and want to engage and take in the detail of the content that you're uploading.
Yeah, cool. And then you did mention obviously the platforms being different, and that is something that we do talk about. So the feature that I showed earlier, which is being able to send your Instagram content straight to Facebook with no changes. Do you recommend, like, so if you do have some extra time up your sleeve, like how much should imagery change between the platforms, knowing that, you know, it maybe is an older audience on Facebook and they might digest content differently? Like, what do you see, like more carousels being used on Facebook, or how do you change your content types?
Yeah, excellent question. I think when you start shifting across, the best thing is resizing your content so that it's actually digestible. When somebody jumps from Instagram to LinkedIn, the content that you get served is going to be in a different format completely. You've got more landscape sort of style images rather than these squares and carousel. Or you get a lot of carousels on Instagram. On LinkedIn as a way of like sharing information and teaching your audience rather than maybe one single image or a reel on Instagram that's a lot more playful. So just, consider who it is that you're trying to engage with and what sort of information they're going to be expecting from you.
Yeah. And I know that Plann automatically like resizes images so that it fits to the platform, but maybe not the desired dimensions like for the platform, if you are wanting to maximize impact there, which is why I love the new feature that you can upload. You can send it, or we also have the feature where you can set or to auto post to Facebook or to LinkedIn separate to your Instagram. So there's options for both time efficiency and then really maximizing the content space that you have there.
Yeah.
And I one of the questions we got earlier was around hashtags, because obviously hashtags feature heavily in our August content calendar and it's our new addition. Firstly, those hashtags were researched by Emma, so they definitely all have search volume on them. Not too much either, because then we also know that if there's too much, how do you get a bit lost in the crowd there? But also, there was a question around why we don't send hashtags to Facebook. And that really is, it's a preference, but we know that people don't consume content the same way on Facebook. There's not really the same searchability and explore. If you think about, you go on there and you look at your news feed and you're scrolling, you're not really setting out to find new content. So your objective there is to reach your followers who are already following you, where on Instagram, there's an opportunity to actually capture new people via hashtags. I thought I'd just add that while we were talking about Facebook, because I did remember seeing that question earlier, and also why hashtags in first comments. Again, that's a personal preference, but we like to put it in first comment because it means that the caption really stands out, which is typically a call to action. So you're not crowding that with hashtags as well. So, and also it straight away you have a comment. So when people go there, that looks like there's some engagement as well on your post because you have your hashtags. Just having a look here as well. We've got time for a couple more questions. So we've also got one from Shamra. Sorry, I think I'm saying that correctly. So she has yellow as the dominant color on her page, but she just doesn't feel like it's really popping and coming out clean and consistent. Like, is there a way that she can, like, I mean, I guess I'm thinking that she's looking for what is her exact yellow, and does she have to know like a hex code for that to make sure it's consistent? And can she play around with a few different shades of yellow, or should she just be sticking to the one yellow?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're using yellow in photographs, you're probably going to find they're always going to come out a little bit different. There's always going to be some variation there. The way to make that pop is to then go look at that color circle that we were having a look at a little bit earlier. You're matching it up with something that's on the opposite end of the scale that's really going to highlight it. So you want to have some kind of dark purple or bright purple so that it's really bouncing off and it creates a bit of depth. If you're using mock-up templates like we're using on Canva, you're going to have an exact match and you want to use that same color as consistently as you can. But yeah, I think predominantly you're going to want to look at having a color to like juxtapose against on your feed if you're taking photographs day in, day out. And if it's, for instance, I have to wear this one yellow shirt in every photo and that's where the yellow's being shown, try have those photos in similar lighting settings so you're not going from this dark gray yellow to a bright buttercup yellow or anything. You want to be as consistent with the photo taking process as well to try to keep it looking like it's all uniform in one set.
Yeah, cool. I think that really helps. And then I have a question from Judy, who is posting photos of highly colored images, so artworks, and then also mixing it with stories of artists. What do you recommend there when, you know, there's a bunch of colors in your images? Is that more like for consistency, you would pick a theme, or so you obviously, you know, only select 4 colors if the images that you're posting are all colorful?
Yeah, I'd say select a handful and work on a theme for the next 9 or 12 pieces of content that you're putting out. If you're a gallery and you've got artists coming to you wanting to have their artwork shown, you could be like, okay, on a monthly basis, this is who I have to show. Who of these have similar styles that might complement each other on the grid, and pair them up together in a particular section and then move on to a different style. You could jump from people that use a lot of pastel, but like every color within the pastel range, but they're all pastel. Match them together and then shift into a darker sort of theme for a few posts, as long as you're being consistent with it, rather than just, oh, okay, they messaged me first, so I'm going to upload this first. And then,
yeah, right. So really,
and theming. Really it out. And that's where Plann comes in great, because you can rearrange, you can drop your 30 different artists worth of content on your grid and be like, all right, I think these work really well together and these work really well together, and match them up and then post according to that schedule.
I think that actually ties really well into the question that we got about tips on transitioning feeds through the seasons. So autumn is approaching in the Northern Hemisphere and we have spring coming up in the Southern Hemisphere. So would you recommend kind of a similar thing, whereas picking a date and, completely changing, the colors of your feed, if that works? Or?
If you can make a transition work, absolutely. I think it looks beautiful. And there are a couple of Instagrammers that do it really, really effectively. It just means you're going to have to actually sit aside and plan that out. It's not, okay, I woke up today and it's going to happen and now I know exactly where I'm going with this. I think it's just something that takes a bit of planning. If you've got the time and you're prepared to spend an afternoon going through that content and being like, okay, here is how I can maybe shift this filter a little bit so that it starts to feel a bit warmer as we go into summer or as I cool it down, moving to winter season. So really, really great idea. And absolutely, if you've got the time to do it, it can be really, really effective. You don't have to just, okay, today's the day, it's different now.
Cool. No, that's amazing. We don't have much time left, so I just quickly wanted to ask, where do we find the color wheels? And so I know that we're wearing Plann colors right now, so I don't know if anyone is posing into the color wheel. That's more your business. I have no idea how colors work. I just do know that they're complementary.
Yeah, definitely complementary
today. So yeah, if you were to go and, you maybe have an idea, you have a small business, so you haven't had the time or the resources to go out and develop a whole branding guide or get someone to do that for you. How do I quickly, go and find a resource where I can grab some colors? Do I just Google color wheel and then pick a post of colors?
Yeah, you can jump onto Google, jump onto Pinterest. Pinterest is actually a really good platform for it because they'll normally attach an image and you look at the image and you'll know what the mood is. So if you know you want to be springtime, go onto Pinterest springtime colors. They'll give you a couple of color hex codes and they'll give you an image to match it. And you can immediately tell, okay, this is the mood that I want. Or no, I don't want to be quite that peppy and upbeat. I want to be a little bit more subdued. So let's look for something that's a little bit more tonal. But yeah, it's honestly, you can jump onto Google, jump onto Pinterest, and most of them will have an example of the kind of feeling that you're going to create using those colors get together.
Amazing. Thanks, Dani. And thank you for all the insight that you shared today. I'm sure it was super helpful for everybody that joined us, especially me, who I wouldn't say I'm aesthetically led. So you've kind of broken down some principles and shown us some really practical ways that we can apply it as well. So thank you.
Awesome. Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you for letting me join you today.
I'm just going to quickly share my screen and just do some housekeeping for next month's Plann with Plann, which is amazing. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Dani, for taking us through that amazing presentation on curating your grid. We will be sending out the replay of this session in the next 24 hours, so make sure you check your inbox for that if you missed the beginning or you just want to go and revisit a particular point. We'll also be sending out a 10-day Instagram makeover challenge. So each day for 10 days, we'll give you a bit of a challenge that really helps you overhaul your grid if that's what you're looking for, which does include you considering the aesthetics and what's working for you, as well as optimizing your bio and looking at your highlights, all premium real estate when someone is visiting your Instagram account for the first time and making that decision about whether or not they're going to give you a follow. And then, of course, we have our next Plann with Plann coming up next month. We love doing these. It's a really great chance for us to connect with our planner community. So the next one is going to be held on Monday, August 30, 5 p.m. PT. So we hope that we see you there, and look out for more information of that to follow. But of course, in the meantime, you can connect with us on Instagram at Plann That. You can email us, you can visit our blog. There's so many ways that you can connect with us, and hopefully, you enjoyed this session, and we'll see you next month. But until then, I will bid you farewell. So thank you, everybody, for joining.